Hey, so welcome to our Vivi Classmate webinar. Just before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, the webinar will last about 30 minutes. Or there'll be a bit of time at the end for questions. So depending on how many questions we have, you are automatically muted, so I can't hear you if you talk at me. So because of that, if you do have any questions, please feel free to either pop them in the chat or the Q&A panel, and I'll be watching that as we go. So I'll answer any questions as we go along. As I said, we will pause periodically to go through any questions. I am recording this webinar as well. So at the end, I will send you a copy of the recording. So please feel free to distribute it as well. To start off with, just because I like to talk about myself, a little bit about me. So my name is John. I am the Customer Success Manager here at Vivi for Australia and New Zealand. Up until 2018, I was teaching in the classroom. So I taught both here in Australia and in the UK. In the UK, I taught down to nursery, which is 4-year-olds. So that was, interesting. And then I taught all the way up to year 12, so seniors here in Victoria. But I spent most of my time in the middle school, kind of from about grade 5 through to year 8, year 9, teaching math, science, and drama were my main areas that I taught. My passion and the reason that I do this job is I love making things easier for teachers through the use of technology. I'm definitely a firm believer in technology should be a tool for your classroom to help with your teaching, not to replace your teaching. So it should really make your life easier. And so that's what I'm hoping to share with you a little bit about today. In my spare time, I am studying. I'm doing my master's in positive psychology. I also enjoy theatre, baking, reading, and all things Disney. So just very quickly, just to talk about some of the new things that we'll be talking about today do require some updates. So first of all, I'm just going to go over a couple of features that will require you to update the Vivi firmware. It'll need to be updated to 2.6. So please make sure you do that. And make sure you've got the most up-to-date version of the app as well, so that we're fully up to date with that in order to get things working. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint just because I don't like doing death by PowerPoint. And I want to take you through, just before we jump into Vivi Classmate, I just wanted to mention a couple of the new features that we have in Vivi, just so that you're aware of them and you can use those in your classroom. So I have my Vivi app here. Now, the first feature that I want to talk about is actually not inside an actual classroom. And that's a new feature that we've got called Favorite Rooms. Really handy. We know that teachers and students move around a lot between different classrooms. You may teach in 10 different classrooms throughout the week. So what you can do is you can choose which rooms that you're in on a really regular basis. And so what you can do when you are in a room list, you'll see there's now a little star next to the app. Basically, if you're not seeing that star, it does mean that your app needs to be updated. So make sure you're up to date there. So if you click on that star, that's now classed as one of your favorite rooms. You can have as many favorite rooms as you want. So you can have 10, 20, however many favorite rooms you have, and they'll just jump to the top. Now, what will happen as well is they'll appear at the top no matter where you are in the list. So if you're there, if you go into another building, if you go into the all rooms list, your starred room will be at the top. So I'm going to go into my room. Now, the other feature that I want to point out, and this is something that's really been one of those ones that's been requested a lot, and so it's been worked on for quite a little bit, and it's finally here and working, and it's awesome, and that is split screen. I really love it. It's one of those ones that I sat there going, oh, I really wanted this in my classroom, but that's okay. So the way you use this is you'll need to click on Room Settings and turn this split screen button on here. So you click on that, toggle it on. And then when you go back and go to Present My Screen, you'll now be given the option to choose a section. So you could go top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. I'm going to go top left. And so you'll see on the screen behind me, I'm now sharing in the top left corner. If I then go back into the Vivi app, I've got some students here, so I could put a student into the other corners. So I'm going to put Peter in the top right corner. And then I'm going to put Natasha in the bottom left. And then Steve in the bottom right. So you'll see as all those appear on the screen behind me, you'll see that they're now there. Natasha just needs to engage screen mirroring. Here we go. So you can see I can now have myself and 3 students, or I could have 4 students on the screen all at the same time. Really, really useful for all those things like comparative work and all that sort of stuff. Really handy to have. Similarly, if you have 2 devices in the classroom, so say you have a laptop and an iPad in the classroom, you could have both of those on the screen at the same time. You don't have to have 4 at once. You can just have 2 or even 3, but just be aware it'll still divide it into quarters. So yeah, you can kind of choose how you lay that out. So I'm just going to stop sharing. And I will turn that feature off. So obviously when you're finished with it, if you just go back into room settings and click on that button, that will turn it off. Now, the other new feature that was in there that you might have seen happen is now auto minimize. So when you hit present my screen, the app will automatically minimize. So it's one less thing for you to worry about. So really handy to have. So just a nifty little feature. Final one to point out, which I'm a really big fan of now, is within the annotation suite. We now have, so when you've done some annotations in here, you can now save to the cloud, and we've just launched a new partnership with Microsoft. So you can, as well as saving to Google Drive, you can save to your OneDrive or to OneNote. So you've got some options there now. So great to know that that's there. So that's the updates to Vivi that we've had in the last little bit. So now let's jump out of that and let's jump into Vivi Classmate. So first, what I wanted to show you is how this actually looks for students. So basically, I've got a student here. This is my student. They are currently in the room, but what we're actually going to do, you'll see that their app looks slightly different to how it used to look. Now it has some tabs up the top. So they have rooms, which obviously takes them to all the different locations within the school that they can select rooms. But they now have a button here called Lessons. Now they'll only see this button if the feature is switched on. So by default, the feature is off, and we'll talk about that later. So for students to be able to see this, the feature does need to be switched on. So if they click on Lessons, it will take them into a list of the lessons that the class is set up for them. So this student is obviously in the class 7A, and so they're getting all the 7A lessons. Now they can go backwards. Unfortunately, I can't in this just because I don't have any previous lessons. But they can actually go back in lessons. So tomorrow, they'll still be able to see Thursday's lessons. So they can jump in there, access them. So say they've forgotten a skill and they want to jump back and refer to it, they can. So it's saved in there. They can also move forward, so I can have a look at what's in there for Friday as well. If I go back into one though, so I've got a lesson here, 7A Science, they're doing Size of the Universe. So we click on this, you can see there's a range of different tasks. So what it does, first of all, is it just gives a very brief summary of what's going to be in here. So it's essentially the first sentence will appear here. So what the student does is it says there for them to join the Zoom call. So then go to click on that, and there is a link there for them to join Zoom. So they click on that link and they access the Zoom call. They then go to the next part of the lesson and it instructs them to watch this YouTube video. So they click on the YouTube video, access that and watch it through. Then complete the following activity on Khan Academy, go in, do the activity and so on. And then the final part is they then need to do a Zoom. I've put an instruction in there, or the teacher has, for them to re-access at 12:20. So they can jump back in and see that. So that's what it looks like from a student's perspective. Now, the way this is set up is really easy. The whole point of this was designed, first of all, for nice and simple for a student to use, really clear layout, so it's not confusing. You know, they're not trying to figure out what they need to do next. They've just got these tasks that are step by step. But at the same time, from a teacher perspective, it's super simple to set up. So what we need to do first is we need to log into Vivi Central. Now, Vivi Central is the Vivi administration platform. When an IT admin logs in, they get on the left-hand side a whole heap of different options for them to control their boxes and stuff like that. I'm currently logged in as a teacher. Now, in terms of how you do log in as a teacher, you need to speak to your IT admin about it. And I'll talk about how an IT admin needs to set that up at the end. So we'll go into that. But for now, let's assume that you've logged in, you know how to log in. So this is what a teacher needs to do. So the first thing that they'll need to do is on the side here, you'll see classmate. So at the moment, this particular teacher that I'm using hasn't set up any lessons. So we're going to set one up today. But the first thing they actually need to do is set up some class lists. Now, the good thing about this is that it's really nice and easy to do, nice and straightforward, and you only have to do it once per class. So you don't have to keep recreating class lists and things like that. So I'm going to create a class list here. This is going to be my, I think we're going to be doing 7A maths. So I've got my class list name. Now I need to put in all my student email addresses. Now this is the moment where people go, oh, like I've got to type those in. However, you can copy and paste them from anywhere. So I have here, I've exported my list of students from my student management system. So whichever one you use, all you need to do is copy their email addresses. Easy as that. So I'm going to copy those, go back into Vivi Central and paste them in there. Now that can be copied from Outlook. If you have them in a distribution list in Outlook, you can copy from there. So you've got lots of options of where you can copy from. And then you simply hit create. Now you'll see this is now created. I've got it there ready to go. I can see just the basic details there. I can also see all my student names. Now this has pulled the student names from our database here. Sometimes the first time you put a student in here, if they haven't logged in before, it may not have their name to start with, but that will appear there once they log in. It just needs to pull that from the database after they've logged in. So if I go back to class list now, you'll see that I now have that class list there ready to go for me to set a lesson for them. So now I'm going to go back to classmate, and this is where I'm going to set up my lesson. So I'm going to click create a lesson. And so now the good thing about this is it's just a step-by-step template. So I can just quickly work through this and put in all the details. So I'm going to give my lesson a name. Now I'm starting off by putting in the class name, just so that then when I have a list of say 50 lessons there, it's much easier for me to find. So I'm giving it the class name, so the actual grade, and then the subject that they're doing. And then I'm going to put in the topic that we're doing. So today we're going to be, if I can spell, simplifying fractions, okay? So this is a lesson that I'm going to be doing in my class. This is going to be held on Friday, so Friday's already been selected. And my start time for this lesson is going to be at 10 a.m. for this particular lesson. So once I've selected my time, I click next. And now this is where I choose my class. So you can see here I have my class list there. If I have multiple class lists, they'll all appear there. So I just choose the relevant class list, automatically pulls through all that information. I click next. And now this is where I set up my lesson plan. Now the good thing about this is that you can copy and paste. So if you have your lesson plan in a document somewhere, if it's a shared document, if it's at some sort of learning management platform, wherever it is, you can copy and paste information from there. You don't have to type it in. I'm going to type in just because it's a bit easier for me. But I'm going to add a task here. So the first thing that I'm going to do with my class is join a Zoom call. And I'm going to put that instruction in. And then I'm going to click on add link. And in that link, I'm going to copy and paste the link to that Zoom call. So whatever it is, it's normally zoom.us and then a whole bunch of random characters. So they're going to join that Zoom call. The second task I'm going to get them to do, whoops, sorry, that was my fault. I'm going to click add task. And now what I want them to do is I want them to complete a worksheet, but also give them some extra information if they want to. So during this lesson, I'm going to spend 15, 20 minutes going over how to simplify fractions with my class, and then I want them to practice it. So their first thing they're going to do is complete the worksheet. So I'm going to add a link. I have my worksheet here on my Google Drive. I'm just going to share it with my class. So I'll copy the link to it, jump back in there and paste it. So that's in there ready to go. And then as well as that, I'm just going to put in an extra instruction and say, So I'm going to say to them, if they get stuck, I'm also going to provide them with this link, which just gives them some more information. So if they forget some instructions that I've given them, they can use that link to jump back in and figure out what they're doing. So I'm going to add a second link. So now the good thing about this is I can add in as many links as I want. So I could have 20 links there if I really wanted. Not sure why I would, but you could have multiple links there, no problems at all. So you could have, if you want the students to watch 4 videos, you could put in the 4 individual links for those, no worries at all. So then the final task, we're going to jump back on a Zoom call so that we can go through the answers. It's going to be the same Zoom call as we did before. So I'm just going to use that link again. So you can see here I have my lesson planned out. It's all there ready to go. So now what I do, I'm going to click next. And so you can see I've been given a summary. So my class is here, the time that it's going to happen, and this is all the information here. Once I'm happy, I click Save Lesson. You'll see it's now appeared here. Now, if I go back into my Students app, you'll see that this lesson has now appeared. So at 10 a.m. tomorrow, they're going to be doing simplifying fractions. If I go in there, all the information's there. So they'll be able to click on that link, no worries at all. Click on next and so on. So that's how you set up a lesson. Now, the really great thing about this, and one of the really big advantages, is because of the way Vivi works, this can track whether or not students are accessing your lesson. So you're able to see how many students are accessing it, how much of it they're accessing, and that sort of information. So if I now go to this lesson here, so I can use the tabs along the top, first of all, to edit it. So if, for example, I wanted to adjust the lesson plan, I can just click edit, make some changes there. But the key one here is engagement. So what you can see, all of these students so far haven't accessed it, except for Steve. So Steve is the app I just had open then. And you can see that Steve has accessed both task 1 and task 2. And this is the most recent date and time that he accessed that. So I can see, great, Steve is actually engaged in it, okay? So we can check that engagement. If I was expecting all of my students to complete and I could see that Tony hadn't accessed any of it, then I can go, right, this is obviously something I need to follow up, something that I need to look on, figure out what's going on there. So really great monitoring system. Now, one other thing that I will point out in there as well, if I want to, for example, if I teach this lesson to another group, so let's say I also teach the exact same lesson to 7B mathematics. What I can do is I can put it in here. We'll just do this because I'm not actually going to save it. And we'll just use that class for now. But in the lesson plan section, I can click on existing lesson and it'll give me a list of all my existing lessons. I can use the search function to find one once I've got a lengthy list. So I can use that search function, but I can select that and click copy and it's just dragged in all that information. So then if for this lesson I have a slightly different Zoom call code, I can just quickly do that, change that and click next and it's done. So it's really nice and simple if I'm teaching a duplicate lesson. So that's how setting up a lesson works, how it all looks from that perspective. So that's kind of Classmate in a nutshell. I'll talk in a moment about how the IT managers need to work it, what they need to do in terms of setting it up and things like that. But just before I do, are there any questions? I'm just going to have a mouthful of water as we check for any questions here. No, none coming through. Awesome. So let me just change my login details. So I'm going to instead log in as my admin person. So for the IT administrators, the way you need to turn this on to get it to work, first of all, you'll need to go to Organisation and Features. And then if you scroll down, the very bottom button. Now, just because of my particular school, it looks like it's not switched on. It obviously is, but you'll just switch that particular option on and click Save Changes. The other thing you need to do in order to get teachers to log in is you'll need to go to Authentication. You need to set up your single sign-on service. and we're more than happy if you need more information on that. I'll put my email address up at the end and I can forward you through more information on how to set up your single sign-on service. And then this is the new feature here, the subdomain. So what the subdomain does is that it allows your teachers to log into Vivi Central using their single sign-on credentials. So they can use their school email address and password to sign on. However, what you need to do is you need to set up a domain here. So my subdomain is VTA, which is obviously short for Vivi Training Academy. So teachers in my school will go to, and it says it there, vta.admin.vivi.io, and that will allow them to log in using their school credentials. So that's how you set that one up. So just make sure you've got that information set up. If you need more information on that, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to go over that kind of information. So that is all the information I want to go through today. So we'll open it up for any questions if we have any, and then we'll bring this thing to a wrap. So is there a cost? No, there's no cost involved in it. So for customers, so for anyone who's already a Vivi customer, it's already included in your Vivi subscription. For anyone who is not a customer, if you are interested in it, it is a free service and it is free for life. It's not, there's some companies who are doing the whole during this crisis time, then we'll provide this free for the next 3 months. Not how this works. It is free for life. So be able to access this particular feature, this part of Vivi for free. However, we will need to set you up for it. So if you are a new customer, please just reach out. I'm more than happy to go through all that information with you, how to get that set up. Are there any other resources on blended learning? Yes, we actually do. Well, sort of. We've got some resources on transition to classroom, which I think are really valuable. So I will actually point those out. So if I jump on the website, and if you go to resources and blog, there's actually a really good blog post in here called Transitioning Back to the Classroom. And in this, there's a whole heap of information, but some really great things like videos and that sort of thing on how to do blended learning. There's some more information about what I've just shown you, Vivi Classmate. There's also this one here, which is about digital signage and how you can put things like health and safety messages on digital signage, those sorts of things. So there's some really great information on there. It also talks about live broadcast. Great feature, means that you can get your principal to go live into classrooms to run assemblies and those sorts of things. So there's a whole heap of good information. So the way I did that was resources blog, and then it was the very top one, transitioning back to the classroom. That looks like all our questions. So just to wrap up quickly, first of all, we do regular webinars hosted either by myself or Catherine, who's my counterpart over in the US. We do post them on vivi.io/webinar series. We do also have some online training platforms. I just realized I need to update this slide because we have a new online training course. So Vivi 101 is our training course for teachers and goes through all the basics of how to use Vivi in the classroom. We'd also now have an online training course for IT admins, and it goes through all of Vivi Central, goes through all the different features, things like emergency broadcast, digital signage, setting up things like classrooms and rooms and all those sorts of things. So heaps of information in there. They are completely free. There's no cost involved. So if you just go to vivi-learning.teachable.com to access those. I will also mention that we do have a Facebook group called the Education Exchange. There's always various conversations going in there. So for example, there's one at the moment talking about a teacher in the US wanted to send some suggested reading for the summer break to some of her students. So there's teachers posting about on that comment. So lots of different conversations going in there. So feel free to join that. So the link is there, or alternatively, if you just look for Vivi on Facebook, then in the groups tab, then you can access it there. So just to finish, obviously you can feel free to follow us on socials or head to vivi.io for more info, or you are more than welcome to email me. My email address is john@vivi.io. Always happy to help out with this. So thanks so much for attending today. As I said, I will get the recording out to you as soon as I can. But yeah, if there is anything else, please just reach out. Always happy to help. So good luck with all the transitioning back to the classroom, and I will definitely speak to lots of you soon. Thank you so much.